Lesson 7. Spiritual power is obtained only by those who honestly and unselfishly live a life of activity, intelligence, truth, and love. As it was explained in the first lesson, they are hound to reach spirit, the culminant point of the life pyramid, not only because they want to be spiritual, but because in living their daily life according to the laws of the Absolute, they cannot help reaching spirit through the operation of the very laws they live. First, a few glimpses of that spiritual power will come to them. They will, during their science and in contacting the universal life energy, rise higher and higher until finally they will reach spiritual vibrations, which are the highest we know of in our present state of consciousness. Very often high mental vibrations are taken for spiritual ones, but whoever has experienced spiritual vibrations can never confuse the two. When mental vibrations rise very high, they become not only very powerful, but also very soothing and harmonious because of their approach to the spiritual plane. Still, they are not yet spiritual. Mental vibrations can come very close to perfection, but they cannot yet enter the gates of perfection because of the peculiar condition in which the human mind is now. Mind, Lucifer, is still an exile from heaven. He has not the right to return to his eternal home until he has learned the lesson of love, has permeated his own quality with the quality of his eternal twin, love, Christ. Until our mind is pervaded with absolute love, that mind will still remain at the gates of heaven and will not enter in. It is only love, the Christ element within us, which can bear us through the gates of heaven into eternal harmony. Mind has to give up its work there and let inspiration and love take us by the hand and lead us into the realm of spirit. The previous 6 lessons were gradually preparing the student for this last 7th lesson. There has been a great deal of detail in these lessons. But when one comes to the apex, to spirit, there everything is simplicity. And because of that wonderful simplicity, the 7th lesson can be properly received only through intuition and inspiration. Yet, even in this instance, there is a certain way of procedure to reach spiritual vibrations, and the theory of it is the following. When the positive thought is established and the magnetic current flowing, rise higher and higher through inspiration into the realm of spirit. Forget personality and know that you are nothing by yourself and everything with God, the Father, the Absolute, the great principle, which creates, constitutes, governs, sustains and contains all. Take long, deep, even breaths, and let your last conscious thought the realization of your oneness with spirit. There will come a moment when suddenly an influx of extraordinary light will be felt. A living, conscious, loving light. Light within and light without. You will feel as I emerged in an ocean of light, and at the same time you will feel that light also within you. That is, you will realize your complete oneness with that light. Thus the spiritual vibrations are contacted. Your work is done. Leave the rest to THU great law. When you will feel those spiritual vibrations fading away, do not try to stop them. Spirit cannot be forced. Let them disappear naturally. To establish the positive thought means to do all the mental work as far as concerns the realization of man's perfect status, his direct and constant relation with the great principle, his author. There all the knowledge obtained, especially in the first lesson, as well as in the other previous lessons, must he use. In other words, within one's mind must he fully realize man's eternal perfection. Naturally, the contact with the universal life energy must he made first, and the magnetic current flowing during the process of establishing the positive thought. When that is accomplished and the realization of man's real self and his relation to the Absolute is clear in one's mind, then is the time to rise higher. Personality must be entirely forgotten. as well of the patient as of the healer. Mind has completed its work, and it is to higher powers, to inspiration and love, to carry the work further. Through inspiration coming from our superconscious self must we raise our vibrations into the highest. Once started in that direction, our vibrations will carry us higher and higher, because of the law of evolution which says, all vibrations tend naturally to rise upward in the scale of eternal harmony. In realizing that all power comes from the Father, from the Absolute, the great principle, which creates, constitutes, governs, sustains and contains all, we thus identify ourselves more and more with that power. Our last conscious thought must be to know and to feel that oneness with the Absolute. Then we must let ourselves go entirely and lose consciousness of all surroundings. Long, deep, even breaths taken at that time will help a great deal to increase our emotional vibrations. And then will come a moment when suddenly a flood of dazzling light bursts upon us. Not mere physical light is it. It is living. One feels its pulsations. It is conscious. It seems to know everything. One senses how wise it is. And supremely loving is this light also. It is like the soft caress of a mother. Love within, love without. One feels as if merged in an ocean of light, as if waves of that light are passing through one and beating at the shores of one's inner self. Light within, light without. A complete oneness with that wondrous power is realized, and yet one's individuality is not dissolved, not lost, in all that power. At the same time, beautiful music, harmonies of the spiritual spheres, are vibrating about us and evoking echoes from within. Wonderful fragrance penetrates one through and through. Like living waters, like nectar, the drink of gods, come those vibrations to one's sense of taste. And as a lovely breeze, soft yet penetrating to the very depth of one's being, it expresses itself through the sense of touch. It is ecstasy, infinite bliss, heaven brought down to earth. Thus spiritual vibrations are contacted. Man becomes consciously one with God. There are no adequate words to express this condition. Once experienced, no one can ever forget it. Christians call it ecstasy, the touch of grace. The Hindus call it samadhi, nirvana. The Mohammedans, paradisic bliss, the seventh heaven. Whenever spirit is contacted in that highest aspect, healing is instantaneous. Not only healing of physical ills, but also of mental and moral troubles. The ray of spirit changes entirely the nature of the individual. Like fire, it cleanses and purifies it, and from a sinner it does make a saint. When Mary Magdalene, a woman of the lowest moral standard, bathed with her tears the feet of the beloved Master, she rose into the highest. She contacted spiritual vibrations, and from a harlot she became a sainted woman. When Saul of Tarsus, persecutor of Christians, on his way to Damascus, was struck with the divine light, spiritual vibrations contacted him, and he was first blinded, but when he recovered again his sight, from a persecutor of Christ and his followers, he became Saint Paul, one of his greatest apostles. Whenever an individual is touched by spiritual vibrations, by grace, his whole nature is changed and he becomes another being. No man can tell who will respond to that highest call. And many surprises may await those who try to bring about this contact with the divine. Some people, seemingly material through and through, suddenly are able, through love and inspiration, to rise into the highest. And some, called spiritual characters, believing themselves to be such, when spirit comes to them, cannot rise to meet the holiest, and thus remain shut out from the greatest there is. It requires the cooperation of the patient with the healer, a sincere cooperation, in order to bring about the highest results. If the patient is not ready, No matter how hard the healer may try, he will not be able to lift him into the realm of spirit. Therefore, if one would have that wonderful experience of becoming consciously one with the Absolute, it were better to enter alone into the secret chamber of one's inner consciousness, and there try through inspiration and love to reach spirit. When the spiritual contact is made, the hands of the healer, if they rest on the shoulders or on any other part of the body of the patient, will be raised unconsciously and held over the patient in a position of blessing. The moment we become one with the Absolute, we are so completely identified with his nature that we unconsciously do what he does throughout eternity. He blesses the universe which he has begotten. Therefore, we bless the world also and the patient who is there under our care. And through our hands, from all our being, are flowing no longer ordinary magnetic or mental vibrations, but the vibrations of the spirit itself, whose touch is sacred above all. A condition of such bliss could not last for any length of time, because under the divine ray a human body would be dissolved. Therefore, spiritual vibrations stay with us only as long as we can bear them, and gradually, like some lovely strain of music, they begin to fade away. No matter how much we would like them to remain, we are not permitted to ask them to tarry longer. Spirit knows its own and cannot be governed. We must let these spiritual vibrations fade away naturally and be thankful to our Father that we were able to contact him in his highest aspect. Our work is done. We must leave the rest to the great law. According to scientific investigations, spiritual vibrations are sent out and received through a certain physical organ located in the upper part of the brain behind the pituitary body and called the pineal gland. The continual, conscious rising within our own selves of our highest emotional vibrations stimulates more and more the pineal gland, that organ of our superconsciousness, which is also the most sensitive organ in our body. The pineal gland then begins to function with increasing power, and in that way acts as a physical channel through which are contacted spiritual vibrations, the highest we know of in our present state of consciousness. The superconsciousness is in human beings the direct spiritual link between them and the Absolute. Through it, human consciousness is connected with cosmic intelligence. It is the guardian angel referred to in different religions, who day and night beholds the face of God. And not always is one successful in contacting spiritual vibrations. Favorable conditions must combine into a harmonious cooperation in order to bring about that contact. Nevertheless, we must always try to reach the highest, to rise into the spiritual realm, and we must not feel discouraged if we do not succeed each time. Each trial, each effort in that direction will bring us closer and closer to the source of spiritual power. Someday we will reach that spiritual power, will become one with it, and in that day, all power will be ours. It is the baptism by the Holy Ghost when that power illumines one. But before reaching that very highest, before being baptized by the Spirit, one must go first through the baptism by fire, the purification necessary for a higher initiation. About 2,000 years ago, a voice crying in the wilderness, John, the one who walked before Christ, to prepare the way, baptized humanity with water. That means he cleansed, regenerated their bodies, their physical, animal natures, to receive properly the teachings of the Savior of the world. Today, 20 centuries later, comes to humanity the baptism by fire, that is, the purification of the human mind through knowledge aflame with love. It is a step higher. It is a preparation for the coming of one who, when he comes to this earth again, will baptize with the baptism of Spirit, or the Holy Ghost, those who are already purifying by fire, by the radiant flame of love. No man will come unto the Spirit until his body is made clean by water, and his mind pure by fire. That is, no man will be liberated from the bonds of ignorance and fear, and rise into eternal freedom, who has not regenerated his body through life energy, magnetic vibrations, and purifying his mind by truth and love, the two roads. Great signs are given to humanity today as in the days of old, yet with eyes open they do not see, and with ears open they do not hear, because their hearts are closed through the pride of their minds. Human beings have two roads to walk upon. One is the human road. The nature of the other road is divine, and happiness is the goal of both. Those who decide to walk the human road must always look about for help and assistance from their fellow beings. They bow before the powers of this world. They flatter them. They compromise with their own hearts because they think the end can justify the means, and for a time success is theirs. Yet the more they scheme, the more difficult it becomes to keep in harmony with all. Still, they advance because support was promised them by word of mouth by many mighty of this world. At last they reach their goal, with hands extended, ready to grasp it. They say it is their own, when suddenly, beneath their feet the very ground is shattered to pieces and they fall, their goal not achieved. Why such disaster, such terrible deception? Why all this loss of energy, of time, of hope? Because their ignorance made them rely upon that which is the most unreliable thing on earth, upon human beings. And there are those who walk the divine road. No human help do they expect. At first their steps are handicapped. They have to fight ill will, and apathy, and ignorance, and fear. From time to time some promises by humans are made to them to help them in their work. With gratitude they thank, yet do not build on these, as they rely alone on laws and divine help. They know that human beings, those even of the best, are human still, hence limited in every way, and therefore do they trust themselves to God alone. They know that limitations can never prevent all power from expressing itself through endless means. They know that if one human promise wanes, that if one human friend will fail, there are 10 more through which the great law manifests itself. And if those 10 should also fail, there are many others, countless channels, through which all good will come to them who walk the divine road. And by, slowly, step after step they climb, overcoming obstacles along the way, until easier and broader turns the path on which they move onward. Strength and joy increase continually. There the goal is in sight, within their reach. They raise their hands and take their own. No man can steal away that prize of theirs, because it is their own by right. Those are the two roads which lie before each man on earth. Let every human being pause and ponder well which path is best to take. One last question, a great question, lies still open for those who wish to know. Why is there evil in this world? If God is God, why does he tolerate all sin, sorrow, suffering, to be spread broadcast upon this earth? Why should man, if Son of God, the same in essence as the Spirit, the great all, why should he need to toil, to strive, to suffer? Old as the world is this question, most difficult to answer. No direct message could reach us through all these labyrinths of the human mind. Therefore from above, through inspiration, veiled in a legend, must come to suffering humanity the answer. That answer, closing chapter of this book of science of eternal being, is called the dream. Night. The fragrance of a warm summer night suffuses all nature. The firmament studded with stars glowing like diamonds, a net of glistening loveliness, through which the dark beauty of night is fading. Soft, living light invades the clear atmosphere like golden vapor. It increases steadily, penetrating and covering everything. Bathed in its radiance, there appear glittering diamond peaks, mountains of topaz and amethyst, massive rocks of emerald, gigantic monoliths of sapphire, as steps leading to higher regions. The light grows in strength, investing all things with color and warmth. These are no rays of a sun rising from behind the hills, but a glowing radiance emanating from everywhere, embracing everything and increasing like some strain of music. And indeed, there is music in the air. Gentle melodies are trembling, soft harmonies are vibrating, and mysterious echoes answer them. Set amidst these precious mountains, surrounded by a grove of gigantic trees so lofty that they appear to be talking with the clouds, stands a palace, large as a city and of wondrous beauty. The walls of it are streams of light rising from the ground and playing in all the colors of the rainbow. Its flat roofs, towers and domes are golden clouds upon which the glow of the spreading light is shedding its morning splendor. And still the light grows in strength. Through the golden roof of the palace rises an innumerable procession of beings, each one seeming more wonderful than the other. Of almost similar height and size are they, but how different each one. Some are like fiery lava streaming from the crater of a volcano. Some are like moon rays made living beings. Some like roaring waterfalls with rainbows playing about their heads. Some like precious stones become alive. Their wonderful bodies appear in all their unhidden glory. No covering conceals their eternal beauty, and eyes, such as when the Spirit itself looks on the world it has created, full of supreme majesty and power, full of infinite love, are shining from under their divine brows. Two of these beings rise with the rest from the depths of the palace, and like twin stars stand tenderly embraced on the top of the highest tower. More radiant, more wonderful than the others are they. Like a brilliant star is the countenance of one. His body, taller and stronger than that of his mate, is like a phosphorescent opal. Streams of living light are flowing through his body and making it shine in iridescent hues. His eyes are lightning, a purple cloud his hair, and when he speaks and when he moves, far away thunder is heard. Golden and shining is his companion, his body woven of sun rays, his hair a glowing flame, his eyes reflecting the glory of heaven itself. And when he speaks and when he moves, soft harmonies fill the air. With gestures of adoration they raise their arms in triumphant song, greeting to the Spirit, thanks to the great giver. Their brothers follow them in the song. All nature joins in this hymn of gratitude. Birds and animals, trees and flowers, rocks and clouds, waters and the ground itself, sing the eternal praise of all beings to the one supreme being, their divine Father. Stronger and more wondrous grows the great song, flooding the universe with praise and love. It rises to a thunder of triumph and dies away in silence. Silence. A limpid breeze moves the air, and each one feels within himself the words, live and love. The Great Spirit, the Father, is communing with his children. Infinite bliss fills every being and pervades the universe. The day of heaven has begun, but the triumphant band passes out of sight. The roofs are deserted, and the two, the heavenly twins, sink back into the palace, and there they stand within the great tower in the very midst of it. High, circular walls surround them, but there are no openings in those walls. Deep and mysterious is the material out of which they are built. Precious also is it, for its name is silence. And upon those mighty walls of silence, towering high up into the free air, are set lofty pillars. Precious also is the material from which they are made, shining in all the colors of the rainbow. Their name is hope, and through these pillars of hope stretching their slender shafts into the highest air, are sailing golden clouds. Silent they move through the tower of silence, but the birds with the rustling of their wings do not dare to fly through because of the sacred silence. Upon these pillars of hope rests a glorious dome, effulgent as a sun, and joy is the material out of which the dome is made, and the floor upon which they stand is a transparent crystal, a gigantic lens, and through that lens the whole universe appears stretched out at their feet. Worlds without number, all stars, sun systems, chains of planets, all beings, everything, the greatest and the smallest, can be seen through that crystal. Understanding is the material out of which that floor is made, with their feet firmly established on understanding, with silence surrounding them, with hope towering over them, and with joy crowning them, stand the two, keeping watch over the world, and the one whose voice is like thunder speaks to his mate. O thou loved one, thou, radiant joy of the world, once more we stand ready to fulfill our charge, to carry out our duties in the eternal scheme. Though the love of the world, I the mind of it, all knowledge, all power are ours, why then must we every morning adore, greet as our master, one whom none has ever seen. Thou art from eternity, and I am from eternity, and so are all our brothers. Yet who has ever seen the one who claims to be our Father and who is called God? True it is that every morning a voice speaks within us, but there is none can tell whether it comes not from our very selves. Why should we adore any longer one who remains a mystery to us? Enough that we should be slaves to an unknown master. Let us free ourselves from the bonds by which we are now bound. All powers, all forces are ours. Therefore let us rule the world, we too, the greatest powers of this world. The answer came soft-winged, tender as love itself. Ah, brother, why these words of pride, of revolt? Thou knowest, for thy heart tells thee in spite of all that there is a God, that we have an invisible Father, who is also our loving Mother, and who enfolds us, his children, in his divine embrace. He thinks continually of us. He plans ceaselessly for our joy. For us he pours out into manifestation the endless beauties, the transplendent wonders, from the unmanifest regions of his heart. And he asks nothing from us but our love. Is it so difficult to love him who so loves us? Dismiss these thoughts of rebellion. Forget these proud words. Sorrow alone can come from them, my brother. Like sudden thunder, like the bursting of crashing floods, came the roaring, shattering outcry. What is this hidden power that can compel mind? Mind, the glittering luminary of all the worlds, is regent in the universe. No servant's place shall I be satisfied to take. If thou, O my gentle brother, wilt not rule with me, and share my power, then alone shall I command the world. And with these words, swift as a streak of lightning, he rises from the ground of understanding, through silence, through hope, through radiant joy, into the open, higher and still more high, past the precious mountains. He climbs the lambent air, leaving behind a blazing train of phosphorus, until his feet touch the summit of the most aspiring peak, the pinnacle of glittering diamond. Poised on the shining spire, his cry goes out to all the world, spirits of light, sons of eternity. The day of freedom, of liberation, has come to us. Free are ye born, free shall ye live. No more adoration, no more praying to a master, to a God whom none has ever seen. From now, ye shall be your own masters. Come all to me, and ye shall be free. And from the hidden parts of all the world, myriads of spirits, sons of light, are gathering together. They surround the diamond peak where stands the one whose eyes are lightning, whose countenance is like a blazing star. With words of adoration they shout, Hail to thee, Lucifer, son of the morning. Hail to thee, liberator, our leader, our master, our God. and he who is proclaimed the master of the hour, called the ruler of the world, looks down upon those prostrate at his feet. I am your master, I am your God. Follow me, for I alone can give you freedom. New beauties shall ye discover through me, new powers and forces shall ye wield. Ye shall become more piercingly brilliant than ever ye have been, like flaming diamonds, more scintillating than the blazing suns. But in the sacred grove, hidden amid the giant trees, with sad eyes and a heavy heart, stands one whose name is love, words of prayer falling from his lips. Father, beloved one, beating heart of all the universe, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Him they call God, Lucifer they acknowledge as supreme. Yet he is nothing but thy child, and all his powers and beauties he has from thee. True it is he appears supreme, for his feet touch the ground, his head reaches heaven, and his glory seems to fill all space. Yet they are as deceived as he is himself. It is thy glory which is still shining through him, and thy power is taken for his own. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgive my brother, Lucifer, for he is still the dearest to my heart. He also knows not what he does. From his piercing height, Lucifer heard the faithful, praying voice, and smiled on him in contempt. But suddenly another voice, heavy with destiny, gathering in its might the unmeasured energy of all the worlds. Lucifer, in heaven all desires are achievement. Thou wouldst be free, thou shalt be free. Go thou, and all those who worship thee, to that further plane to which ye all belong. These regions of eternal light can bear thee no longer. Your bodies cast shadows in the pure skies, from the spheres of light to the outer, utmost void. Go. Thus the voice from the vaulted silence, and on the moment, a sudden burden as of great heaviness falls on Lucifer and his followers. They are no longer able to offer resistance against its weight, and with a blast of thunder and terror, they fall from the realms of light into the somber void. As they fall, darkness grows denser about them, until no spark of light, no hope is left to them. Far in the utter gloom, still falling, they perceive a fiery region which draws them swiftly to it with irresistible force, and they are cast into an ocean of fire, of smoke, of molten metal, of boiling stone. He who was the first to fall is also the first to rise again, and he sees his brothers, his followers, once spirits of light, darkened, disgraced, extinguished, thrown into that abode of fire and suffering. And he calls to them, Rise, my brothers, rise, ye who are still the sons of light. True it is that from the highest spheres of bliss, we have been cast into this desolation. Yet all knowledge is still mine, and thus all power, and I shall make for you from this hell a new heaven, and this new heaven shall he called earth. As he speaks, the ages pass, the flaming fields contract, the incandescence blazes with a fainter heat, the fumes and vapors gradually disperse, and a lustrous, glowing planet, cradled in fire and beauty, is born. The lovely earth appears, green hills and gentle slopes and flowery meadows, singing brooks, clear rivers and the blue sea, mountains and chasms and waterfalls. And through enchanted forests birds of 100 colors are flying, and in the fields animals are roaming. And Lucifer is pleased with his creation and says, And now, my brothers, ye shall be the inhabitants of this new heaven, and ye shall be called human beings. And wonderful beings, lofty of stature, strong and comely, appear on the earth. They propagate and multiply, and rule the earth. And Lucifer is their king, their god. So fair a world seemed the true semblance of heaven. But the canker of revolt which had cast them from heaven still lived with them, and the spirit of jealousy, hatred, and pride begins to manifest itself, and grows, and spreads, until the splendid earth becomes again a hell. But now they are unable to bear any longer the suffering which infests the earth, and they find no help or relief from Lucifer. In their deep despair, they remember their father, and turn to him and pray again to God. And God, their Father, hears the cry of his children, and from his heart sends down to them his own love. And love comes down from heaven to earth, and love becomes a human being. And love lives with human beings and teaches human beings how to love. But Lucifer, incarnate also as a human being, sees the menace to his power, and in a passion of hate and jealousy rises against his brother and slays his brother. And God's love shakes off the burden of the earth, and earth is without love again. So sorrow and terror once more prevail, and the suffering becomes intolerable. Again human beings cry out to God for help, and God, the Father, the loving Mother, hears the cry of his children, and from his heart sends down to them his own love. And love comes down from heaven to earth again, and love becomes a human being. And love lives with human beings, and teaches them the law of love. But Lucifer, the world's mind, again incarnate as a human being, rises against his mate, his eternal twin, and causes him to die, for he sees in him the great menace to his power. And once again, God's love returns to the Father, and again the earth is void of love. So through the ages, whenever misery and suffering increase upon the earth so as to make life intolerable, the children of the earth call out for a deliverer. And always love, gentle and tender-hearted, comes to their call and tries to save his brothers. But Lucifer ever rises against him, kills his body, and destroys his work, for love is the continual menace to his power. And when for the last time God's love came down to earth and lived the humble life of a simple mortal, giving to humanity the greatest lesson that love ever gave, Lucifer, incarnate as a human being, rose once more against his brother, betrayed him and brought him to his death upon the cross. But he, of whom the world was not worthy, breathing his last breath, dying as a felon upon the accursed tree, prayed for those who had crucified him. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Father, forgive my brother Lucifer, for he knows not what he does. These burning words of love struck Lucifer like lightning in his heart, and he went out and made an end to his human self. And rising as a spirit, he beheld the greatness of his brother's love, and the endless evil of his own age-old sin. He saw the sorrow and the suffering which came through him to all beings, and he felt that cold and stony heart of his melt and soften, and he wept tears of blood, tears of fire, and those tears fell on the earth, and the earth trembled to its very foundation. Thus for the first time, after countless ages of revolt, did Lucifer lift up his eyes to God, and words of prayer fell from his lips. Father, I know the immensity of my sin, and do not beg for forgiveness for myself, for crimes like mine cannot he atoned. But oh, my Father, forgive them, those who followed me in my fall. Forgive them, for they knew not what they did. No fault was theirs but that they loved me more than thee, and listened to the magic of my words, the glitter of my mind, so that thy laws were all forgotten. Therefore, I pray thee, forgive them and take them back to thee. Let them return to those pure spheres of light, where bliss and harmony and serenity are. But for myself, if by my eternal damnation I can win their eternal salvation, I am ready to be damned for eternity. Then from the vaulted silence, a voice, gathering in its might the unmeasured energy of all the worlds. Lucifer, thy sacrifice is accepted, and through thy sacrifice shall the world be saved. And he, the proud one who had thought himself a god, bent his knees, and with his head touched the dust of the ground. And like far-off thunder sounded his words, "Father, I thank thee." And once again the voice, "Lucifer, thou hast sinned much, but thou hast also loved much. Infinite is thy sin, but infinite also is thy sacrifice. Therefore art thou forgiven. Go into the world, live among the children of the world, and carry to them the light of knowledge purifying by love. Thus the veils of self-delusion will be withdrawn one by one, limitations will be removed, suffering conquered, sorrow transmuted into joy, and when the last human fault shall have been destroyed, when all thy brothers will have come back to me, then only will come thy day of liberation. Thy pinions of inspiration, singed by the fires of hell, will have grown again strong enough to lift thee from this bath and to bear thee back to heaven. And there, at the burnished gates of heaven, the portals of eternal harmony, shall love, thy brother, thine eternal mate, be waiting for thee, to lead thee back to me." And Lucifer went into the world, and Lucifer taught the world, and to the world Lucifer carried the light of pure knowledge, glowing with the flame of love. Night, the fragrance of a warm summer night pervades all things. The firmament blazing with stars, and beyond the stars darkness softly fading away. The radiant palace, the sacred grove, and above them, the mountains of precious stones. And in the sacred grove whose trees are talking with the clouds, rest in sleep myriads of beings of eternal light. Beneath the loftiest tree, the loftiest king of all the woods, lies one whose countenance is as a god's. He lies in deep slumber, and bending over him, calling him softly with words of love, stands his mate, his twin brother. "Loved one, awake, arise, my Lucifer. The night is fading fast, and soon the day of heaven will begin. Now must we sing again the praises to our Father, and lift our voices in adoration and gratitude to God." Like far-off thunder came the questioning words from trembling lips, and out of sorrowful eyes a flash of lightning. "Oh, where am I?" And the answer, "Thou art in heaven, Lucifer." But again the question, "Where have I been these ages? This fall, this suffering through countless years, and always fighting thee, my loved one, destroying thy work and killing thee. Where have I been? Not for a single moment of time hast thou left heaven, Lucifer, but with thy brothers in the sacred grove, beneath the great trees, hast thou slept the night, instead of with me in the palace. Lonely was I, my brother, for I missed thy presence. But these sorrows, these nights of darkness that I saw and lived, this suffering, these crimes, this agony, what were they all? Whence came they and where have they gone?" And the answer, burning words of love, "Beloved, it was nothing but a dream." Questions and answers to Lesson 7. 1. What is the most direct and simple way to obtain spiritual power? By performing one's ordinary daily actions energetically, intelligently, accurately, and joyfully. 2. Can mental vibrations be raised into spiritual ones? And not until mind has learned the lesson of truth and love. 3. What is the theory of how to reach spiritual vibrations? To become one with spirit, one must forget personality, and through inspiration and love realize the allness of the great principle and one's oneness with it. 4. How are spiritual vibrations perceived? Through all the senses, which become so acute that they are able to register the highest vibrations. 3. Is it advisable to deny senses in order to perceive spiritual vibrations? Denial of senses will not help. Their refinement is needed. 6. Through which physical channel are spiritual vibrations most easily contacted? Through the pineal gland, located almost in the center of the upper part of the brain, behind the pituitary body. 7. What part of our mental self does the pineal gland represent? It represents the superconsciousness, of which it is the organ. 8. What effect do spiritual vibrations have on human beings? They entirely change human nature from negative into positive. 9. What is that change called? The touch of grace, samadhi, nirvana, paradisic bliss. 10. Can physical diseases also be healed by spiritual vibrations? Yes, and instantaneously. 11. How long can spiritual vibrations be contacted? As long as human beings can stand them. Too long a contact with them would completely dissolve the material body. 12. Is one always successful in contacting spiritual vibrations? No. Favorable conditions must combine in harmonious cooperation in order to bring about that contact. 13. What is the baptism by the Holy Ghost? It is the illumination through spiritual power, the contact with spiritual vibrations. 14. What must precede that highest baptism? The baptism by fire. 15. What is the baptism by fire? It is the purification of the human mind through knowledge aflame with love. 16. When will that baptism come to humanity? It has already come to humanity, and is baptizing it with its radiant flame. 17. What preceded the baptism by fire? The baptism by water, which purifies the body. 18. What does the baptism by water stand for? For the regeneration of the body through the use of the magnetic life force. 19. Can anyone reach the baptism by spirit, which means the purification of the soul, without first having the mind purifying through the baptism by fire, and the body through the baptism by water? No. 20. What do the three kinds of vibrations, the magnetic, the mental, and the spiritual, stand for? They stand for the threefold baptism, which means the regeneration of human beings on the three planes. 21. What are the two roads human beings walk upon in their life? The human road and the divine road. 22. What is the difference between them? The human road, relying upon human support, leads to failure. The divine road, based exclusively upon the great principle and its universal forces and laws, leads to success. 23. What is the most unreliable thing on earth? A human being. 24. What is the one power on which to rely completely? The power of the Absolute, called also the Great Principle, or God. 25. What is the origin of evil? The belief in separation from all power. 26. Did that separation ever actually take place? No. It is nothing but a dream which humanity is dreaming. 27. What does the legend, the dream, represent? It represents the tragic history of mind. 28. Who are the two principal characters of that legend? Two brothers, heavenly twins, Lucifer and Christ. 29. What do they stand for? For mind and love respectively. 30. Where does the action take place? In the realm of eternal harmony, commonly called heaven. 31. Explain briefly the legend. In the secrecy of silence, Lucifer and Christ are performing their eternal duties of keeping watch over the world. Mind, feeling himself to be the possessor of all knowledge and power, refuses to acknowledge the source of all power, his own Father, the eternally unmanifest, called God, and claims that power as his own. He offers to share the power of this world with his twin brother, Love. Christ refuses to give up his God, and warns Lucifer of the great danger of pride. Lucifer, or mind, then decides to rule the world alone, and to substitute his power for that of God. He sends his call throughout the world. He beguiles those fellow 326 pound Karsui spirits who respond to his call with wonderful promises if they will follow his lead, and they proclaim him their liberator and their God. Having broken away from all power, Lucifer, mind, loses the greater part of his power and falls from his high estate, together with those who followed him. This fall is called the involution into matter, which is itself nothing but the product of the involutionary process. Though fallen, Lucifer's pride is still unbroken, and with the remnant of his knowledge and power, he tries to create out of the hell into which they have been precipitated, out of the boiling, fiery mass of pride, revolt, jealousy and hatred, a new heaven which he calls Bath, and he makes human beings out of his fellow spirits. Mind, in his utter pride, wants to create his own world after the divine pattern. Seemingly successful in the beginning, he ultimately fails completely. Pride, revolt, jealousy, hatred, all permeating his creation, make again a hell out of the heaven which he thought he had created. His twin brother, love, comes to the rescue, but mind, out of jealousy, continually fights the only one who could help him. Through ages that fight goes on, until love wins, and mind, Lucifer, acknowledges his defeat. There comes to him the realization of the immensity of his mistake, and he decides to face eternal damnation in order to save humanity. His sacrifice is accepted, but through his own sacrifice the negative in him is destroyed, and the positive and eternal is brought out. He goes out into the world to learn the lesson of love, and his mission as mind is to teach humanity that all power comes from God alone. Thus he brings back all human beings to the realm of eternal harmony, called heaven, and redeems himself also. And when that work has been completed, though seemingly it lasts through countless ages, and is so real to him, he realizes that all that negative and sad experience was nothing but a dream. Having learned the lesson of love, mind becomes one with it, in the bosom of their eternal Father, God. Every human being born to this earth is experiencing within himself that living dream of mind. Mind is continually fighting against love, the Luciferian principle combating the Christ principle. And when the Christ principle, love, wins, then Lucifer, the fallen mind, is redeemed and the liberated individual is awakened to his true status of eternal perfection as a son of God.